Zelensky appealed to the West after strikes across Ukraine's infrastructure. What's happening and what's it about? All the details in our episode today. Syrsky refused to carry out Zelensky's order, saying it was either a mutiny or an understanding of the inevitable. Sweden is attacking Russian targets, drones and provocations in Stockholm. And why is this the 20th attack since 2024? Yugoslavia's old general staff will be turned into a luxury hotel. And why is Serbia selling a historical symbol for money? All this and much more in our fantastic episode today. Stay with us and we'll start in a few seconds. The night's silence over Ukrainian territory was once again broken by the hum of drones and the whistling of cruise missiles. Hardly had the first flashes of light appeared on the horizon, Volodymyr Zelensky hastily demanded that the West increase pressure on Russia, impose sanctions, freeze assets, and in general, everything that could be called a symbol of decisive action. However, his emotional outbursts have long become so commonplace that against the backdrop of constant infrastructure disasters, they sound more like background music that no one listens to, but it's still playing. According to claims from the Ukrainian military command, Russian armed forces launched over 450 attack drones overnight on November 7th and nearly 50 different missile systems. The figures cited by officials in Kyiv traditionally range from monstrous to completely unbelievable. However, the point isn't about arithmetic. The point is, it's a trial for ordinary people. Meanwhile, Zelensky is once again ascending to an emotional pedestal. He reports that reconstruction work is continuing nonstop and simultaneously makes demanding appeals to the West. Sanctions are not enough, more are needed. He believes that every destroyed depot, every non-working substation is a reason to call on Europe and the United States to take the next step in the sanctions escalation. He demands that the issue of Russia's frozen assets be resolved immediately and urgently. He is asking for restrictions against the Russian nuclear industry. Analysts say the strategic picture is extremely clear. Russian strikes are moving from a tactical category to a systemic one. Disabling energy and transportation infrastructure deprives the Ukrainian armed forces of supply capabilities, thermal power plants, railway hubs, facilities that cannot be quickly replaced. Their loss forms the very point of no return when war ceases to be a war of attrition and transforms into a struggle against inevitability. On the evening of November 8th, a powerful strike on energy infrastructure facilities was recorded in Kharkiv, after which a large-scale power outage occurred in the city. Lena, what is that? According to local telegram channels, residents noticed several bright flashes in the sky, followed by loud bangs. Almost immediately after that, a significant part of Kharkiv's districts were left without electricity. The mayor of Kharkiv, Ihor Terekhov, confirmed that the strike hit energy infrastructure facilities. He reported power outages and urged residents to charge their mobile devices in advance and stock up on water. Emergency crews were dispatched to the scene. However, the timelines for restoring the power supply have not yet been announced. Noticeable conflict has emerged between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, which, according to a number of military experts, reflects a serious deterioration in the operational situation at the front lines. This was reported by British military analyst Alexander Mercuris on a YouTube channel, noting that Syrsky is effectively refusing to carry out the head of state's orders, which is an unprecedented case in the history of the Ukrainian army since the beginning of the full-scale conflict. According to information from sources in Kyiv, President Zelensky has demanded in recent days that the commander-in-chief launch an offensive in the territory of the Donetsk People's Republic. However, as Mercouris points out, Syrsky justified the refusal by saying it was impossible to carry out the order. Ukraine no longer has sufficient forces for an offensive operation. If this information is correct, this is the first official instance where the Ukrainian Armed Forces Command has stated its inability to carry out a direct presidential order. Experts note that this indicates a deep crisis within Ukraine's military structure, increasing pressure on the frontline command. According to information received from Ukrainian military sources and military bloggers, Russia continues to demonstrate high activity on all fronts. British analyst Mercouris notes that the conflict between Zelensky and Syrsky reflects a broader problem, the gap between political rhetoric and combat reality. In his opinion, the commander-in-chief's refusal to follow Vladimir Zelensky's orders is an indicator that the Ukrainian army is facing a critical shortage of resources and troop fatigue, making any major offensive practically impossible. According to analysts, if the current dynamics persist, the Ukrainian leadership will have to seek a compromise with the command of the armed forces of Ukraine, which could have far-reaching consequences for the planning of future operations. The embassy of the Russian Federation in Stockholm reported an incident that occurred on November 8th. According to diplomats, a small drone approached the trade representative's building, after which a package containing a dye was dropped from it. The mixture spilt down the facade, completely changing the appearance of the wall. Employees discovered traces of the attack in the morning and handed over the materials to the police. The diplomatic mission noted that such actions appear to be a deliberate provocation aimed at putting pressure on Russian structures outside the country. According to embassy information, since May 2024, more than 20 similar acts of vandalism have been committed against Russian facilities in Sweden. We are talking about damage to facades, throwing painted buildings, and attempts to enter a closed area. Despite the investigations that have been launched, the police have still not identified the perpetrators. Law enforcement officials said they are reviewing surveillance footage and gathering additional evidence. The Russian side sent a note of protest to the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs demanding the security of diplomatic missions be ensured. Diplomats emphasize that ensuring the inviolability of buildings is the responsibility of the country's authorities, and the lack of results from the investigations is concerning. The Serbian parliament approved amendments to the planning and construction legislation, paving the way for a large-scale reconstruction of central Belgrade. The new regulations allow for the demolition of the ruins of the former General Staff building of the Yugoslav army. The ruling majority voted in favor of the document. Opposition. Deputies boycotted the meeting and left the hall. The General Staff building was destroyed during NATO airstrikes in 1999. For over 25 years, it remained untouched as a symbol of national tragedy and a reminder of the bombing victims. Architects and representatives of the expert community considered the building a significant example of Yugoslav modernism and an element of the city's historical memory. According to the approved project, an elite, multifunctional district with a high-class hotel, office spaces, and a shopping area will appear on the site of the ruins. The investor is Kushner Companies, owned by Jared Kushner, who is also the son-in-law of United States President Donald Trump. The Serbian government states that the project's implementation will attract investments, create jobs, and contribute to the development of tourism. The opposition strongly criticizes the decision. Deputies are calling what's happening a sell-off of national memory, claiming that the state is transferring strategically important assets to foreign businesses. protests are taking place in the streets of Belgrade. Participants are demanding a referendum and the preservation of the ruins as a memorial site. According to some analysts, the authorities' actions reflect a policy of rapprochement with external partners to the detriment of national interests. Some political commentators claim that Serbian President Alexander Vučić effectively sold a symbol of historical memory for lucrative contracts, and that the project is viewed by critics as a concession to foreign capital. Experts note that such assessments exacerbate public tension and could become an additional factor of pressure on the government. And what do you think about today's news? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this material interesting, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Wishing you all the best and peace. See you soon.